Hello and welcome back to another Game of Thrones video here on this channel. And last night we had another episode. This one is called Stormborn. And that title doesn't refer to a lot other than like the first two sentences in the episode where you have Dany and she's talking to her council about she thought it would be a homecoming, and it's not really much of a home. It doesn't feel like home to her. And then you have Tyrion saying, "Hey, on a night like this, you were born," and it's really stormy and everything. But other than that, the title doesn't mean a lot to the whole story. But like I said, the first place we are is in Dragonstone, and Dany is talking to her council. I mean, and something happens here that's really cool that Game of Thrones does really well, and that from the first season, we from since then we come to now. And back then in the first season, people trusted the other people in wherever they were. They just kind of trusted people. Now this scene right here where there's before in the very beginning, we have a great, really like a great dialogue between Dany and Lord Varys, who is the bald guy, the eunuch. We have a great dialogue between them two about Dany's just like drilling him about his past and how he served her father, and then he served Robert Baratheon, and then he betrayed Robert Baratheon. So she really drills him about, hey man, why should I have you here? You have not been all that faithful to the people that you've served in the past. What's different about this time? And then Varys like gives a great he has really good answers for everything that she says, where he's like, hey, your dad was kind of sucked, man. He was a bad king. And but Robert Baratheon, look, I had to serve him or else I died. Okay, that was just the way it was. And so he had great answers for every question and every like insult, or not insult but backhanded insult that she gave to him. And it was a really great dialogue between them two. And at the end, she's like, hey, swear to me this, that you'll never betray me, and that if I become a bad ruler, if I become, like the Mad King, that you will not do it behind my back, that you will not, conspire behind my back, that you will come up and tell me that I'm being a horrible person as a ruler. And that was really cool. And then she was like, yeah, but if you betray me, I'll kill you. So it was pretty cool. It was a great dialogue between them two. And then Melisandre comes, and Melisandre, we haven't seen her for a while since Jon Snow banished her from the north, and she finds herself at Dragonstone, and she tells Dany about Jon Snow, and she doesn't quite convince Dany, but she tells Dany that, hey, this guy Jon Snow is the new king in the north. You should definitely talk to her, because they talk in High Valyrian, I believe. Dany and Melisandre, they talk in High Valyrian, and Melisandre tells Dany pretty much what she's been telling everybody, every ruler that she has come across and that she's tried to help, tried to be an aid to. She pretty much tells her the same thing, that look, there's a prophecy about a great prince, and that they will rule the kingdoms, and that they will save us from something like that. That's the kind of the gist of that prophecy. And then Dany's like, well, I'm not a prince. And you have her aide who's like, actually in High Valyrian that has no meaning gender wise. It doesn't have a meaning of a male or female. So it's like, maybe it does apply to you, but it's like, to me, I was like, wow, Melisandre's still doing this. She's still like, I get that she believes in the Lord of Light and his teachings and his or not his teachings, but and the visions that she's had, and the revelations, and the prophecy that she's had. But it's like, man, after what, three different rulers you've had, or what was it, three or was it two? I think after two different rulers that you've had, and then she was with those freedom fighters, the ones that also serve the Lord of Light. It's like, why are you still continuing to believe in that? Like, it just doesn't seem to be something. And maybe she's not so much, I don't think she's using that argument or that prophecy as she did before. Whereas before she was like super dedicated to it, and she absolutely believed it with 100% of her being. Whereas in this one, it didn't seem like she absolutely believed it. It seemed like she used the prophecy to get to get in Danny's council. And maybe that's just how I get it. If you get it differently, that's great. But she tells Danny about Jon Snow. Tyrion, though, here's where Tyrion comes in. It's finally good to see Tyrion have some more dialogue. Like, come on. But it's finally good to see him. He's drops a couple one-liners in there. It's pretty funny. A great wit, sharp wit. But he tells Danny that, hey, Jon Snow's a good guy. He doesn't like Cersei and Jaime. He likes them probably less than we do. So Tyrion tells Danny, hey, we should totally get him on our side, because now, like, they had the Tyrells and the Dornish people who are from the south, and so they have a good they could get a good pincer move where you can pinch King's Landing and the Lannisters from the south with them, and then if you get Jon Snow and all the Northmen on his side, then you can kind of pinch them from both angles, where you have the Lannisters have to worry about two fronts, not just one. And Tyrion's like, hey, we should totally summon him. He's a good dude. I think he'll be on our side. Dany's like, all right, do it. And then she's at the very end, she's like, tell him to come here. His queen invites him here to come join us in battle against the Lannisters, and then you got to bend the knee. And it was kind of crazy because you see Tyrion's, you see his reaction, and it was like, maybe not. Maybe he's not gonna bend the knee. It was like he knows that Jon Snow might not bend the knee, but he didn't want to tell Dany that. And it's great. And then that's kind of where we leave off Dany and them at Dragonstone, and we go to Winterfell. And Winterfell, it's pretty much like a direct cut from Dany telling Tyrion to send the Raven, and then when we get to Winterfell, they have the Raven. So it was just like, you know what, nothing really important happened while the Raven was traveling, so let's just get to the Raven. Sansa's reading the message from the Raven out, and she doesn't believe it. She's absolutely skeptical of it. She's like, hey, it could be Tyrion, but it could also be someone trying to lure you and to kill you, because now you're the king in the north, Jon Snow. So Sansa's really against it. She's not absolutely against it. She's just against taking the risk. And that's something that's really cool with Sansa. It seems like now she's so much smarter. She's not just like, no, we can't do it because it's absolutely a trap. She's just like, look, it might be a trap, so we can't take the risk of losing our king in the north to some raven, to some message, to some piece of paper, you know what I'm saying? And so she's really smart in that. And then Jon Snow, there was a line from the first season that Tyrion wrote in the letter, and Jon Snow was like, well, he said that to me when we first met. And so Sansa was like, yeah, maybe it could be him, but we just can't take the risk. And then you have, sorry about that, it was Sir Davos. Now, Davos reads the message. He's like, well, they have Dothraki, they have Unsullied, and then they have dragons. And then he was like, wait, hold on. Wait, White Walkers die by fire, right? Boom. Hey, man, if the White Walkers make it past the wall, we might not have enough men to take out the White Walkers. So Davos is like the reasoning behind. He's pretty much the cow that breaks the camel's back, as far as he gives the little push to Jon Snow, like, hey, if she's got dragons, we could use some dragons with the White Walkers. Now, this is something that I don't know what's going to happen, because look, Cersei Lannister totally, she knows about the dragons, and she's already got that thing in place about the dragons, which we'll get to in a little bit. But look, the White Walkers, it doesn't seem like they have a lot. It doesn't seem like they have something or a contingency plan to deal with the dragons. Now, it could be the giants that we saw. It could be, just them using their big old bows and taking out the dragons. But as far as we know, it doesn't seem like the Night King really has a plan for dragons, because he doesn't, have spies like Cersei and like everybody else. He doesn't have spies that are, telling him information like, hey, Dany's got some dragons. We've got to figure this out. We got to figure out how to beat them. Or, hey, we got to go to Dragonstone because there's dragon glass all over there. Like, he doesn't have that. So I don't know if the dragons, I think that they would be very devastating to the Night King and his army. Now, going into King's Landing, what happens here is you have Cersei on the throne, and she's talking to the bannermen of House Tyrell, and she's bending the truth about Dany. I mean, she's making it seem like Dany is no bueno. She's making it seem like Dany is Cersei. Yeah, so it's really cool to see something like that happen. She's trying to get them to help her fight against the Dothraki horde and all of Dany's allies too, including House Tyrell. And Lord Tarly in this, he's like, hey, they got 3 full-grown dragons. The same as Aegon when he conquered the 7 kingdoms, and you have Cersei like, well, that's true, but like her face says that, but you have her archmaester or her maester. That dude's like a conniving little, ugh. He just, the way he even says that we're working on a solution to that, it's just like, you know what? Why does it seem like you? It just seems like you need to spit. Like you have too much phlegm in your mouth. It's just like the way he is a great actor, great acting. But it was just like, you know what? Oh man, I wish somebody would kill you already. But so that's what happens, and then Jaime tries to talk to Lord Tarly, and he's like, hey man, because Lord Tarly's kind of other than the Tyrells, his house is kind of the main house. His house is the one that everybody in the South looks to in order to be their example. And so Jaime's like, hey dude, we could really use your help. I mean, look, we need you, man, we need you. And then he keeps trying to talk to Lord Tarly, and he's like, hey, if you help us, you can be the warden of the South. And this is something that Game of Thrones does really well, is when you have things like this, you have times where characters are like, hey, I'll give you warden of the South if you do this. And then it'll show Lord Tarly's reaction, and it's a reaction of maybe, and then they just cut away. And that's something that Game of Thrones does really well. It's not telling you everything, and I think that that's something that more shows, more movies could even do good with. It's like, hey, you don't have to spoon feed the audience. You can let them have questions about what's going to happen. You can let them have questions about pretty much every single character and what you think they're going to do. And that's something that Game of Thrones does really well. His reaction was literally that of maybe. He doesn't say it, with just his acting was like maybe, and then it cuts away like, well, we don't get to see the end of this conversation. We don't get to see, Sir Jaime being like, yeah, see you later. It's like we don't get to see that, so we have these questions. We have these speculation now that we as fans can do, and that's just one of the best things about this. But we go over to the Citadel, and we have Samuel Tarly, and him and the Archmaester they are not trying to treat Ser Jorah of the Grayscale. They're just trying to, well, they figure out that he's kind of done for, and that's something that's kind of really unfortunate. I mean, look, I'm not one of those people who really like Ser Jorah as a character. I personally think that his story is done, but hey, I totally could be wrong if they bring him back. Just, it's Game of Thrones, so they'll figure, if they want to bring him back in the limelight, they will figure out a way to bring him back, put him back at Dany's side, and be able to, they'll do it in a good way, kind of like they did with the Hound. But yeah, they're trying to treat him. They pretty much say, Ser Jorah, the Archmaester says, you're far well gone. Tomorrow, I'm gonna send you back to you're gonna send, I think, that old place where he got the grayscale. That's pretty much where they're gonna send him, and then that scene wasn't that long, but then we get the Archmaester and Cersei, Queen Cersei, down below. I believe I don't know where, but it's down below the throne room, I think, and it's where you have all the dragon skulls, and they walk up to this massive one, the huge one. This dragon skull was just huge, and then you have your maester telling Cersei, hey, one of them was hurt while they were fighting, over there. So if they can be hurt, then they can be killed. And so they go over, they find this big old crossbow, and they fire it, and it goes through the skull of the dragon, the big dragon skull that we see, and then we just get Cersei doing her great smile, as we are prone to having in Game of Thrones. And that's pretty much where we leave off with Cersei and everything that's happening at King's Landing. We just get that they got kind of a good solution to the dragons. Now, this is something that I hope. Look, I think dragons are the coolest thing, and I think dragons are the thing that will push. I think dragons are the things that will ensure that humanity in this world is going to live on. I think dragons are the one thing that the humans have that the White Walkers don't have. And I think that and I'm pretty sure that they're gonna hurt some dragons when Dany tries to do some stuff. So my wish would be for them to have all three dragons and be fighting the White Walkers, Dany riding one, Jon Snow riding one, and then Tyrion or whoever else is there. But that's what I wish, but I think that we're going to see some dragons die, which is really unfortunate, but hey, it's Game of Thrones, so they're not going to give you everything's all good and hunky-dory, Then, of course, we jump back to Dragonstone, and we find out Dany's plan of what they want to do. And at the beginning of this scene, you have everybody kind of doubting her a little bit, saying like, hey, we should just go attack King's Landing right away. We have a bunch of resources, and we can take it out within a day. And Dany's like, hey, I got dragons. I'm not gonna burn down King's Landing before I even get there. Before I get on the throne. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, why be king of nothing? Why be king of the ashes? Why be queen of the ashes? Sorry. But yeah, so we get their plan. We get that they're going to lay siege to King's Landing with the armies of the Dornish army, and then House Tyrell. And then while that's happening, Grey Worm and the Unsullied are going to go take back Casterly Rock. So then you have everybody pretty much agreeing with her, and you get this really cool thing when everybody leaves. Lady Tyrell and Dany, they kind of sit down and they have a nice small little short chat, and Lady Tyrell is like, hey, Tyrion's great, he's clever, but I've outlived many clever people because I ignored them. And then you have this really great line, probably the best line in the whole episode, in my opinion, where Lady Tyrell just says, "You're like the people of Westeros. They're sheep. You're not a sheep. You're a dragon. Be a dragon." And so we might get Dany going away from this plan because it seems like Dany's going to be a dragon. So, that's some more speculation we got. Great Game of Thrones stuff. But then you get Grey Worm, and the night before he leaves for Casterly Rock, he finds love, and it's great. All right, way to go, Grey Worm. You done good. Now we have Samwell Tarly still trying to find a way to cure Ser Jorah, and he even kind of breaks the law to try to save him. He finds this method of curing, or maybe curing, advanced grayscale, and he goes behind the back of everybody in the middle of the night to try to do it to Ser Jorah, and it's really just brutal scene. I mean, he's like cutting off the grayscale from Ser Jorah, and it's just like, ugh. And then it's great. It's absolutely great because at the very end of this scene, you have like it does not look great on Ser Jorah, and then it like cuts, but it doesn't do a hard cut. It like morphs into a stew that one of the guys is eating, where Arya is, and it's so funny because the first time I watched it I was like, wait, what, a spoon? And then like it's funny because the picture kind of morphs into this bowl of stew, and then you just see a spoon come down, grab some stew, and then some guy eats it, and I was just like, wait, what? I had to do a double take on that. It was a really clever way of having that transition. And from that, we have this new scene with Arya Stark. And now Arya she's in this little tavern where Hot Pie was. And this is pretty much, it's not exposition at all, but it's like, it's a scene in which the character finds out a lot of what is happening and what's going on, because in this you have Hot Pie pretty much telling her a lot of what's been going on, as far as the Boltons are dead now, Sansa and Jon Snow are at Winterfell now, told her about Brienne of Tarth coming through the place and finding Sansa, and all are going to find Sansa from the place. And it's a really clever scene to use, because it's not just like, hey, Arya, this is what's been happening. Arya does it in such a way that it's absolutely natural, and it's a scene that we kind of need, because it seems like finally we're going to have Arya back at Winterfell, and it looks so good, because at this point she had been traveling south, and she had She'd been traveling south to go kill Cersei, but now after this scene, we have her traveling north. It seems like she's traveling north to go to Winterfell to find her family, have a great reunion, and it's a really good scene to just let us know, hey, or to give Arya Stark a new heading, because I don't think she was gonna kill Cersei anyways, but it gives her a new heading to go to we can finally, since like the first season of Game of Thrones, we can finally have, you know, we can have a family reunion with everybody but Bran. Now, that's the thing. In this episode we didn't get any of Bran, so it must not have been that important. Maybe he's traveling to Winterfell also, which would be really awesome. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Bran there, but it looks like we're gonna get a good family reunion of the Starks, which I'm all for. And from that we have this new scene with Arya Stark, and now she's in this little tavern where Hot Pie was, and this is pretty much, it's not exposition at all, but it's like it's a scene in which the character finds out a lot of what is happening and what's going on, because in this you have Hot Pie pretty much telling her kind of a lot of what's been going on, as far as the Boltons are dead now, Sansa and Jon Snow are at Winterfell now. Told her about Brienne of Tarth coming through the place and finding Sansa, and all that's are going to find Sansa from the place. And it's a really clever scene to use, because it's not just like, hey, Arya, this is what's been happening. Arya does it in such a way that it's absolutely natural, and it's a scene that we kind of need, because it seems like finally we're going to have Arya back at Winterfell, and it looks so good, because at this point she had been traveling south, and she'd been traveling south to go kill Cersei, but now after this scene we have her traveling north. It seems like she's traveling north to go to Winterfell to find her family, have a great reunion, and it's a really good scene to just let us know, hey, or to give Arya Stark a new heading, because I don't think she was gonna kill Cersei anyways, but it gives her a new heading to go to we can finally, since like the first season of Game of Thrones, we can finally have, you know, we can have a family reunion with everybody but Bran. Now, that's the thing. In this episode we didn't get any of Bran, so it must not have been that important. Maybe he's traveling to Winterfell also, which would be really awesome. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with Bran there, but it looks like we're gonna get a good family reunion of the Starks, which I'm all for. Jumping back up to Winterfell, we get Jon Snow he's telling all of his guys that he's got to go, because, and it's not just because that Dany has dragons. I think it's mainly because Dragonstone has a mountain of dragon glass there, and that is so much. It's like that mountain of dragon glass. If they can mine that, if they can make the swords and things like that from the dragon glass, that is almost more important than having dragons, in my opinion, because now you have your army with dragon glass, and that kills pretty much instantly. No matter, I don't know if you have to like hit them in a spot like you would normally have to do on humans, like where if you like stab somebody in the arm, you might not kill them, but you stab them in the chest, it's a lot better. I don't know, because Samwell Tarly, he like stabbed the White Walker in the back, and it kind of just died. So maybe that's why I think that the dragon glass, I think Jon Snow is making the absolute right decision here, because he knows that dragon glass is maybe more important than the dragons themselves. And he leaves Sansa in charge, pretty much, of the North now. She's now Queen of the North. She's probably like Queen, maybe not Queen of the North, but like Warden of the North, or what have you, whatever that is. Um, but he leaves her in charge, and then you have him talking to Lord Baelish, which is, it's pretty crazy that Lord Baelish is starting to slip up, and that's something that's very scary for Lord Baelish, because, and for us as fans of Lord Baelish, because we've always envisioned, hey, Lord Baelish is one of these characters that could be around at the very end. And he's kind of slipping up because he's like, hey, Jon Snow, I love Sansa as I loved Catelyn, and Jon Snow's like, whoa, dude, like, what? And Jon Snow gives him the whole grab his throat, push him against the wall, and is like, hey, don't touch my sister, I'll kill you myself. And so, yeah, it just seems like Littlefinger has got to get back on his game. Maybe he shouldn't have a love interest. It seems like when he didn't have a love interest, he was better at being Littlefinger and being better at the game. You know what I'm saying? But that happens, and yeah, that's pretty much all that happens in Winterfell. We just have Jon leaving with Sir Davos to go to Dragonstone to hopefully get that mountain of dragon glass, and get them swords and whatever else you make dragon glass. Next we have Arya Stark, and she's traveling north again, and then she is happened upon by some wolves. And what's really cool is, in my opinion, it's really cool that she finds Nymeria, who is leading these pack of wolves, and that's her dire wolf that she let run away. I believe that's that one, Nymeria. Yeah, and you have Nymeria leading this pack of wolves, and what I found that was really what I wanted to happen actually did happen for once in Game of Thrones, was that Nymeria left. Like, let's all just be honest here. If she would have stayed with Arya Stark, eventually she would have died. And, I mean, not eventually, like, died of old age. She would have died of not natural causes. You know what I'm saying? Somebody would have killed her, which is great. I think that's great. Like, it's like, wow, okay, good. At least we have one dire wolf out there that is not dead, It was just, I felt like, woof, we dodged a bullet with that one. I hate seeing the dire wolves die because they're so cool, But we have that reunion, and then that departure of Nymeria, who leaves her alone, which is really cool because the wolves had all they'd all gathered around Arya. They were gonna attack her and her horse, but Nymeria recognizes her. Boom, leaves her alone. Great, thank you. No more dead direwolves, please. And the last scene, you guys, this last sequence with the Sand. That's their last name. The Sand Lady Sand. How would you say that? Anyway, the Dornish people, where you have the queen of Dorne, and then you have, is she a queen? Anyway, Lady Sand and then her 3 daughters are on the Greyjoy ships, and then they're traveling back to Dorne, and boom, you got Euron Greyjoy being a pirate and taking them out. I mean, he takes out the 3 daughters. Well, not the 3 daughters. He takes out 2 of the daughters. They capture the 3rd daughter. Not the whip one and not the spear one. They capture the knife-throwing one. They capture her. They capture the queen mom. Then they capture Aisha Greyjoy, I believe is how you say her name. And then it's really, like, it's a great sequence where you have Euron's ship, like, literally ram them, and then at the front of his ship is like a ramp that he pulls down, and it just smashes a dude, and then he comes on with the battle axe and starts taking people out. It's a really, really awesome scene. And then you have him capturing, like I said, one of the daughters, the mother of the Lady Sand. Her last name is Sand. That's all I know. and then he captures the Aisha. I forget how you say her first name, but the great Theon's sister. He captures her, and then he's like, "Come on, Theon." And then he looks around and he sees that the people of Euron Greyjoy are cutting out the tongues of the survivors from the good Greyjoys, their people. And so Theon's like, you know what? I've had body parts cut off before. I'm not gonna do this again. So he just jumps off the ship and he's like, I'm out of here, man. And you just, it's like, it's a crazy ending to this episode where you just have like, it's not a good ending as far as good goes. It's like we thought, but after last week's episode, I did not know what was going to happen. I did not know what the priceless gift Euron was going to give to Cersei. Looks like that's the Dorne, the Queen of Dorne, and then the Lady Grey, the good Greyjoy sister. I'm sorry, I can't remember how you say her first name, but it's them. Like, that's apparently their priceless gift, and that's big as far as it cuts off a lot of what Dany could do with those ships, because those ships were the ones that were transporting the Dothraki. So it puts Dany and her people in a kind of a tight spot. But that's pretty much it for this episode. And I'm sorry this review and everything took really long, but it's just, there's so much that I want to talk about, and I still would like to talk more about it. So hey, if you want to go in the comment section down below, we can totally have a discussion down there of anything that you picked up that I didn't pick up, or anything that I didn't talk about. And please tell me how you say the Greyjoy's first name. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm gonna kick myself once I see it. But yeah, comment down below whatever you want to talk about. Speculation, absolutely speculate in the comments down below. But that's this video is already really long, so I'm gonna end it here. Thank you for watching this video, and if you like this video and want to see more videos like this in the future, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thank you.